My name is Miss Clementine Kilonzo, a teacher of English and Literature at Mombone Girls School. And today I'm your presenter for English 101/2. I am here to make you see how easy it is to pass this paper, to give you a few tips so that together we can look at how we can improve our grades in this paper. This paper carries 80 marks. We know that it's a paper that carries 80 marks. And I will go straight to the approach that I want to use when handling this paper. We will first look at what is tested in this paper, the examination skills, the tips, the challenges that one is likely to encounter, and of course, the penalties that you're likely to face if you do not do things the way that the examiner expects you to do them. So let's begin with what is tested. In reading skills, skimming, scanning, intensive and extensive reading, close reading, and inference are some of the areas that are tested. This is covered in 4 broad areas. We have question 1, which is the conventional comprehension. This is the comprehension that we call the unseen text. Unseen in the sense that it is from something that we've not seen before. We have not encountered it elsewhere. Unlike, the extract, which is question 2, which is drawn from one of the set books that we've been interacting with since Form 1. Then we have question 2, which is an extract from the compulsory text. This year, the extract will be drawn from which book? Blossoms of the Savannah. Then there is question 3, which tests poetry. This is a poem that could be drawn from Africa, East Africa, the Caribbean, and even the rest of the world. Then we have oral literature. Here, what is tested is songs and oral narratives. So far, last year, an oral narrative was tested. We know that NEC does not have, this habit of repeating itself. But I'm not saying we don't read the oral narrative. It's likely to be tested again. But then the song has not been tested for several years. The last time songs were tested was 2014. So this is a likely area. Poetry could be brought again because it was tested in 2018. I know you encountered that poem in your revision, The Man He Killed. Yes, The Man He Killed, and other poems that you've come across. Then the last question is grammar, which carries 15 marks. So we will be looking at each of these sections as we continue with this discussion. Let's start with question 1, which is the conventional comprehension, which we are also calling the unseen passage. Now, the areas that are tested here are emerging / current issues. Emerging / current issues. For instance, right now, as citizens of this country, we know the emerging issues that are taking place here. Those are likely areas of testing, like the COVID-19 epidemic, things such as corruption, obesity. And I was saying elsewhere that it is very ironical. You people know what irony is, your candidates. It's very ironical that people in this country, some people have obesity, yet this is a poor country that does not have lots of food. So obesity, discipline, which was tested in 2018, and discipline is a key area of concern in this country. And it is why maybe NEC decided that it be tested. So look at all those areas that are likely to be tested. Then in 2019, there was a question about fire. and how it led to the development of the human brain. I didn't know that because of fire, my brain was able to develop, but these are the issues that you get to learn about. So you can also be asked, or you can be brought a passage about the environment, pollution, trade, global warming, and many, many other areas. As students, as candidates, let's read widely. Let's interact with what's happening in the country so that in case this comes, then we know how to go about it. So how is this tested? How is question 1 tested? A variety of questions will be asked that will require your comprehension skills, your inference skills. When we talk about comprehension, we're talking about, are you able to understand the writer? Are you able to get to know what the writer wants to say? Can you look at the writer's point of view and, understand where he's coming from? Understand why he's arguing out things the way that he is? Then when it comes to inference, are you able to interpret, the passage and maybe get to understand the writer's attitude, tone, what is the mood of the passage? What does it make you feel as a reader? That's about inference. Are you also able to use the information in the passage to get to understand what the writer intends for the reader? So there are also other questions on summary writing. We will look at that because there are various things that I feel you need to know about summary writing. Then there is note making, paraphrasing. I know this is not a problem. This is not a problem because we know that paraphrasing is saying something differently, but still retaining the meaning of the sentence, the paragraph, or the phrase that you're paraphrasing. Using your own words to say something differently, but still retain the meaning. So let's look at the tips that we need to have in order to get 20 out of 20 in question 1. I remember telling someone that when you look at question 1, it is as if you're entering the examination room with a Mwakenya. You know what a Mwakenya is? Like you have the answers to the question because the answers are right there. What you need to do is to extract the answers and fit them where they're supposed to be fitted. It's what computer students call copy and pasting. And that is exactly, what you're going to be looking at this morning. So what are the tips that are required for you to get this 20 out of 20 in the passage? And I am telling you that there are students that get this 20. There are students that are able to get 20 out of 20 in question 1. You only need to follow what we are going to be talking about today. So the first thing, you read the whole passage to get an idea of what it is about. Read the whole passage to get an idea of what it is about. Last year, the passage was about fire. Read the whole of that passage from the beginning to the end. Don't look at the questions at this point. You just want to get, a hint of what the writer is talking about. You just want to know what is the subject matter of this passage. Then after you've read the passage, go to step number 2, which is reading the questions given. But then as you read these questions, also look at the marks allocated for each question. In most cases, question 1 will have 2 marks, right? Then, as a student, you know that for you to get 2 marks, you must work for them. Nothing comes easy, right? So you need to work for those 2 marks. So look at the marks that have been given for each question. Look at the marks that have been given for each question. And as you read this question, try to ask yourself, what does the examiner require from me? What does this question want? What does this question want? What is it that the examiner requires of me as a student? Number 3, classify the questions. Are they comprehension or inference questions? Comprehensions are those that, you're getting the answers directly from the passage. Are we there? You don't need to think critically. You only need to get the answers from the passage and paste them into the space provided. Those are the comprehension questions. The answers will be directly extracted from the passage. Then there are those inference questions that will require you to think critically, right? To interpret the information that you've read and now give your opinion of what you think the writer intends you to know. Then, after that, read the passage again. But now you're reading with the questions in mind. You're not just reading, you're reading with an intention. You're reading with the intention to know, where am I going to get answers for the questions that I've just looked at? Where am I going to be extracting the answers that I want to use to answer the questions? And I always tell my students that as you enter that examination room, have a pencil with you, so that as you read the passage, you're underlining where you're likely to get answers. And preferably, you can even write, I will get the answer for question 1 here, question 2 here. You're planning where you're going to be getting your answers, so that when it comes to time for you to answer the questions, it is very easy. You just go get them where you highlighted. Are we together up to that point? Now, having said that, having underlined the parts where we are going to get our answers, our work is now very easy. We go back to the questions. We go back to the questions and try to see which questions were we not able to get answers in the passage. The answer to that is no, because all the questions' answers will be got in the passage. They will either require you to comprehend or infer using information that you've read in the passage. Now, after that, answer the questions. But as you answer them, remember you're guided by the marks allocated for each. Remember, you are also being guided by what you highlighted in that passage. Are we together? And as you give your answer, ask yourself, does it satisfactorily answer the question that was asked? Is it a complete answer? Because as you answer these questions, you have to use complete sentences that are able to communicate. Are we together? For instance, in 2019, let me just give an example. In 2019, the first question was, students were asked, according to the author, when did humans invent fire? And the answer was 800,000 years ago. 800,000 years ago. Now, if a student just says some human species may have made occasional use of fire very early, very early. That is the statement that comes before 800,000 years ago. They will not score, because that is not what the examiner is looking for. Ensure that you write a complete sentence that communicates a full idea. We know that a complete sentence is able to communicate your idea as intended. So don't give half answers. Ensure that it's a complete sentence that is able to answer the question the way it's supposed to be answered. Then, another thing that you need to know, you need to gauge the writer's point of view. What does the writer feel about this subject? What does the writer feel about the subject of discussion? Then look, to understand the writer's point of view, you look critically at his choice of words. His choice of words. For instance, if the writer is talking about something like, weight issues, and he says, some people are thin because they don't eat right. And another writer says, some people are skinny because they don't eat right. What is the intention of this writer? You know, when somebody says you're thin, do you feel good or fat? Let's talk about fat, because you know people don't like being told that they are fat. So somebody says, you're fat because you eat a lot. And another says, you're plump because you eat a lot. What is the subject? You know, what does the writer feel about eating and weight issues? When somebody calls me fat, I will not take it kindly. You know, I will not. I will not, because how can you call me fat? But when you say I'm plump, okay, it is not so nice, but I will accept it. You know, it's more accommodating. Unlike when somebody calls you fat. So try to look at the choice of words. What words have been used to describe the subject matter? How has the writer presented his message? Through this, you get to understand the writer's point of view. Because honestly, for the last like 10 years, there doesn't seem to be a year when NEC doesn't ask a question on attitude or tone or mood. And you will get this by looking at the words that have been used to discuss the subject matter. Are we together? Then, having said that, when you're answering questions, express yourself well in writing. Express yourself well in writing. I am saying that you need to use a good handwriting. You need to use a good handwriting. A handwriting that is legible. A handwriting that is legible. Write carefully, neatly. Write carefully, neatly, obeying all the rules of grammar, spellings, and punctuation. Obeying all the rules of grammar and punctuation. Grammar and punctuation. So in this question, the examiner will not look at grammar as it were, unless they are marking the grammar question. Present yourself as a student that knows what they are doing, right? Give a good impression. Give a good impression so that whoever is marking your work can see that this is a candidate that knows what they are doing. This is a candidate that is in touch, that has a good handwriting, that is neat, not one who is always canceling things and is very confused. He's even drawing arrows to show the examiner, go to the back. You know, that shows a very careless candidate. So don't be that kind of candidate. Give a good impression by writing neatly, legibly, avoiding cancellations, and thinking out your answers before you even write them. Then do not offer information in your answer that does not directly correspond to what the question asks. Ensure that your answer is answering the question that has been asked. Are we together? Then in vocabulary questions, and I really want to emphasize on this because I've seen students lose marks in vocabulary questions. This is usually the last question. This is usually the last question in question 1, where you are told, give the meanings of these words underlined as used in the passage. As used in the passage means the way they've been used in context, not dictionary meaning, the way they've been used in that passage. And that is what the examiner wants from you. What does this imply? Listen very carefully. This implies that whichever word you're going to give there must fit into that passage. Give the same meaning without breaking any grammatical rule. Underline, without breaking any grammatical rule. You can get that word, put it there, it gives the same meaning, and the tense does not change. If it's a noun, the number does not change. If it's an adjective and it's in the comparative form, your answer must also be in the comparative form for it to fit in that passage and give the intended meaning. Am I clear? Then, having said that, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that that word that you give should agree with the word class, the tense, the number, etc. of the vocabulary. So these are the questions that are asked in the comprehension. These are the questions. Is that here? Yes. So according to the passage, there's a summary question. I will talk about summary. Then there is making notes, questions on facts and figures, imports. Okay, now, this is a very important point that we need to know, that comprehension questions, I told you that you divide your questions into those that require answers to be picked directly from the passage and those where you need to think critically before you give your answer. So for those comprehension questions where you can get the answers directly from the passage, paper 2 allows you to go to the passage, that area where the question is, pick that answer and paste it in the space provided. In the space provided. I don't know whether we can share paper, 2019 paper. It's here. It's among my documents. Let me show you how you can go about it so that it is easier for you. Suppose this comes in the exam. Documents. K.C.S.E. Check. K.C.S.E. Just write K.C.S.E. We are trying to share one of the past papers so that we do this practically, so that you see how easy it is for us to just pick the answers and put them there. Yes, not the marking scheme, the paper, yes. So let's go through that passage together. Read the passage below and then answer the questions that follow. A significant step on the way to the top was the domestication of fire. Some human species may have made occasional use of fire as early as 800,000 years ago. By about 300,000 years ago, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and the ancestors of Homo sapiens were using fire on a daily basis. Humans now had a dependable source of light and warmth, and a deadly weapon against prowling lions. Not long afterwards, humans may even have started deliberately to torch their neighborhoods. A carefully managed fire could turn impassable barren thickets into prime grasslands teeming with game. In addition, once the fire died down, Stone Age entrepreneurs could walk through the smoke remains and harvest charcoaled animals, nuts, and tubers. But the best thing fire did was cook foods that humans cannot digest in their natural forms, such as wheat, rice, and potatoes, became staples of our diet, thanks to cooking. Fire not only changed food's chemistry, it changed its biology as well. Cooking killed germs and parasites that infested food. Humans also had a far easier time chewing and digesting all favorites, such as fruits, nuts, insects, and carrion if they were cooked. Whereas chimpanzees spend 5 hours a day chewing raw food, a single hour suffices for people eating cooked food. The advent of cooking enabled humans to eat more kinds of food, to devote less time to eating, and to make do with smaller teeth and shorter intestines. Some scholars believe there is a direct link between the advent of cooking, the shortening of the human intestinal tract, and the growth of the human brain. Since long intestines and large brains are both massive energy consumers, it's hard to have both. By shortening the intestines and decreasing their energy consumption, cooking inadvertently opened the way to the jumbo brains of Neanderthals and sapiens. The domestication of fire was, therefore, a sign of things to come. We're not going to read it like 2 times the way we are supposed to because of time. But then look at question 1. We are doing this practically so that you see how easy it is to get 20 marks. According to the author, when did humans invent fire? According to the author, when did humans invent fire? The answer to that is in paragraph 1. This is a comprehension question. You only need to go to the passage, get the answer, paste it there. So you go to the passage and write, some human species may have made occasional use of fire as early as 800 years ago. And your answer ends there. 2 marks for that. Can you see how easy it is to get marks? Then you go to the second question. The second question, which is also a comprehension question. In about 55 words, summarize what early humans used fire for before they cooked with it. So the early uses of fire. This is a summary question. I want to say something about summary writing. When you're given a summary question, your teachers have told you in class that first you extract the points, right? Write them in the rough draft. Then after that, join them using transitional words or linking words or connectors to form complete ideas. That will be done in the fair copy before you go to the final draft, the one that you want the examiner to mark. Now, one thing you need to know is that summary writing requires you to write in continuous prose. Continuous prose. Continuous prose means that your sentences have a flow. You know, you're writing in a paragraph. You're moving from one idea to the other, and to do this, there is continuity. That is why we call it continuous prose. There is continuity in your writing. Failure to write in continuous prose means that you must be penalized. Remember those penalties we talked about? Now they start applying here. They start applying. So you write in points. If the total marks, like in this question, the total was 5 marks. You get, if you have the 5 points that the examiner is looking for, you're going to have 2.5. So half of the total will be deducted. Why? Because you did not follow instructions. Summary writing, whether there is space provided for the rough draft or not. Because I remember there's a year, NEC did not provide space for the rough draft. So since students did not see that space for the rough draft, with this year it's there. You see, there's a rough